Welcome back to the 12-Sided Guys. We have Matt as Pine.
Hi.
Scott as Joff.
That's me.
Jordan as Ebby.
Salutations.
Sabrina as Nari.
Hey there.
And me, Paul, as Rand McNally. You know, because I be making so many maps. Sorry for that joke. That one was terrible, but I was really proud of it. Anyway, thanks for hanging out with us. Hopefully we make your workout / commute / workday / chilling at home just a little bit better. If you want some more 12-Sided Guys, you can check out our Patreon at patreon.com / 12-Sided Guys. That's 12-sided guys. Patrons can get access to our maps, a wiki, some bonus episodes, and even a little treat from us. Show it off to your friends and get them listening to us as well. That way you can have someone to talk to about the campaign. Aaron recently became a patron. Not Aram, he was last week. And Aaron got access to all that sweet, sweet content. In fact, with the addition of Aaron to the Patreon, we've decided that it's about time for another Q&A session. So to all our patrons, say thank you to Aaron, and then send in your questions about the campaign so far. If you're not a patron, but have some questions, email them to us at 12sidedguys@gmail.com or tweet them at us. We'll make sure to answer them. If you want to hear those answers, join the Patreon. And I don't normally do this, but I want to give a quick shout out to the entire state of Nevada. You may be called the Silver State, but in our hearts, you're gold. If you... I appreciate the laughter. Anyway, if you've ever earned job points by sitting around throwing stones at each other, then this podcast is for you. It's the Crystal Codex, episode 38. I was going to say something about Nevada being the cream of the crop, but Silver State, your gold just flowed so much nicer.
You know, you're going to offend everybody from Nevada because they're going to be like, we're not California.
Oh my God.
Oh, that's true.
Nevadans are Nevadans, Nevadaites, Nevadoids.
Nevadians?
You thought Paul was going to offend him.
Nevadoids are very... They use the same kind of naming convention that we use for gobloids and hobloids, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's early in the morning, right before the sun comes up, in the Glass Mountains, the morning after Nari and the boys finish their arduous climb through the snow-choked mountains and into the Tallhart Valley, as Pine regales their new friend, Yasten.
So, Yasten, have you ever traveled out of the mountains to Last Chance? Do you know why they call it Last Chance? It's because it's the last place to resupply or turn back before coming through that treacherous mountain pass. What? You did know that? I just didn't give you that time to answer my question, and there was no need for me to explain it to you? Understood. Well, we met an old acquaintance of ours there, a trader named Gerard who was selling some magnificent items to help us on our journey. He may have even come through here on his travels before, I'm not sure. He tends to turn up all over the place with his trusty woolly ox, Porthos. Have you ever seen a woolly ox? Are they native to these mountains? What? You've never heard of a woolly ox? Well, it's an enormous four-legged creature covered in long, thick hair with two massive horns coming out of the side of its head. It has a cloaca like a bird, and the males lay eggs. What? It sounds totally made up to you, and some of its biology seems to have been pulled randomly out of the air by some immature deity that wanted to make a joke? Yeah, I'll give you that one. Porthos is weird. Speaking of weird animals, check out these wacky birds. Beekaboos, they're called. My companions purchased them in Last Chance to help us summit the pass. Oh, and Ebby has a caribou. They're all sufficient for the trek, I suppose, but I'll stick with Crumbles here. What? Crumbles seems to be an Alaton like you have here in these mountains, but he looks different in his coloration and crystalline horn. Yes, he does. He's such a good boy. Aren't you a good boy? Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Anyway, once we left Last Chance and got up into the mountain pass, we experienced some very difficult traveling conditions. It took us 8 days to make the journey. We were hoping for 4 days. We're all so exhausted now. It's nice to see a friendly face. I was afraid we'd have to dispatch some hungry beast as soon as the sun went down. What? A pack of falcon wolves has been tracking our scent for the past 5 hours, and we'll need to take up arms and most likely will be devoured regardless? I'd better wake everyone. We should set a perimeter around our animals. We'll want Ebby's unicorn ready, and maybe we could get Joff in one of those trees to throw that mystical frisbee he's got his hands on. What? The thing about the falcon wolves was just a joke? Falcon wolves aren't even a real thing? I should have seen the look on my face just then. Touché, Yasten. Touché.
The end.
That was awesome. All right, Nari and the Boys. It's now been a couple of days since you guys came out of the mountains. You are riding, let's see, Crumbles the Aileton. There is Ebby riding a caribou. And then Joff and Nari are riding these large bird beakaboos along this not necessarily worn path.
Bork, bork, bork.
That's right. Bork, 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 bork. It's not necessarily a well-worn path, but there is definitely a path that you can follow. And riding along next to you is Yasten, the Tallhart tracker / warden with his antlers, riding his kind of gray and black Aileton. He is accompanying you guys to the town of Woodbridge, which is kind of the main settlement of the Tallhart clan.
So as we're traveling, Nari would definitely want to chat with Yasten, ask him to elaborate a little bit more on what he was telling them about the Stormfists and when the last time they saw them was, and anything that he knows what's going on.
Says the Stormfists, 2 years ago, they didn't come back down out of the mountains when fall came, when autumn struck. And as you know, I mean, being a Stormfist, it gets very, very cold the further up the mountains you go, and it's really unheard of to stay up there, but they never came down to Winterhome. And Nari, you would know Winterhome is the name of kind of the main settlement of the Stormfist clan in the winter, which is down more in the valley. It's actually next to a lake, and it's a lot more comfortable down there in the winter. It still gets a lot of snow, but it's easier to hunt game, and you have your supplies that you've been accumulating throughout the year. And so to not come back down to Winterhome is very odd. And Yasten says, yeah, they never came down from Summerhome.
That's strange. And you mentioned something about building a permanent structure?
Yes, they've walled off the path up into Summerhome. The few of us that have gone up to try to see what's going on and to try to trade with the Stormfists, they won't let us anywhere near. There's towers, these wooden towers, watchtowers, that they warn us not to come any closer. And if we do, then arrows have been shot, and I'm sad to say blood has been shed.
I'm very sorry to hear that. I'm concerned for my family, obviously, but concerned for the valley and relations in general.
Well, I was hoping that maybe you might have some answers for my people.
I don't have a whole lot right now, but hopefully soon I'll have some answers.
I want everyone to make perception check. Very high difficulty. Difficulty 20.
Do we still have disadvantage from exhaustion?
No, it's been a couple days.
Pine rolled an 11.
16.
Joff got a 22.
Yeah, Ebby got a 24.
As you guys are riding along, talking, Pine, you're kind of lost in thought, I imagine. Nari, you're having this conversation with Yasten. Neither one of you realize it, but Ebby and Joff, you feel just the slightest tremor. And it's kind of hard to tell because you guys are mounted, but you do feel a slight tremor in the ground.
What in the world was that? Did anybody else feel that?
Yeah, I felt that. Is this an earthquake?
Yasten turns his head. He says, you felt the ground shake?
Did you step on loose snow?
No.
Maybe you're just not used to riding caribou and beakaboos.
No, I've been on my beakaboo this whole time. You guys didn't feel that?
Bork.
I didn't feel anything, but I've been kind of lost in thought, or so the narrators told me.
Tuxie, what are you feeling?
Bork, bork.
Oh, that's the best name. Oh, Tuxie.
Gosh, that's so funny. Tuxie the Beakaboo. Awesome. Yasten actually says, yes, the mountains have been restless. The closer you get to Stormfist land, the more restless it is.
Do you think they're hiding something or protecting something up there?
I don't know what it would be.
I don't know why they would put themselves in isolation and stay in one area like that.
I have a quick question for Sabrina. Sabrina, Nari had a vision. Oh gosh, I don't know. At this point, 24 episodes ago, maybe. Is that something that she shared with the other members of the group?
Yeah, I think at this point, anything kind of a little bit unusual, she would at least mention to people. Maybe not talk about like it super in depth, but at least mention.
Yeah, because just for listeners, there was a vision that you had, kind of a dream, and when you woke up, you didn't notice it right away, but your tattoo had kind of shattered, right? It had kind of broken.
Yeah, no, and we definitely talked about that. Yeah.
Just as a refresher for everybody, part of that vision included tremors and your Stormfist families up in the mountains, and there was a tremor, and they felt it, but they didn't react to it. You know what I mean? You could tell that they were just used to the earth shaking. I would say that him mentioning that the mountains have become restless would probably jog your memory back to that vision.
I'll kind of not mention that necessarily to him, but definitely make note of the fact.
Then you continue on your journey.
While we're traveling, Pine will ride up next to Ebby, and he'll say,
Don't feel so bad, Ebby. Look at those beakaboos behind you. I mean, they look the way they have to sway when they walk. I'd be getting seasick. I think you'd made the right choice with the caribou.
I do feel like I've made the right choice. He told me his name. It's Polkin. Isn't that a lovely little name? Polkin.
I love that name. It's wonderful.
You should hear the wild stories he tells all about being up there in the snow with all the other caribou up there in the high mountains and then getting captured and put in a pen.
Then being forced to cart around your 300-pound butt.
Yeah, that's about right.
Does he ever say anything about Crumbles? I mean, we have this connection, but I kind of get the idea he may be a little standoffish, and I really want him to get along with the rest of the group.
Oh, I should ask him about that. Most of the time he's just kind of mumbling to himself like, poor Polkin having to carry around these people, and poor Polkin never gets to see his people ever again, and poor Polkin will probably die alone. Things like that.
Oh, Polkin, what a joker.
He's so silly.
Oh my gosh.
Pine is just going to be like, oh, I'm sorry, I asked. And then kind of get lost in thought again.
Oh, man, that's great. All right. Yeah, you guys continue on your journey. You're kind of following this river. I don't know if you guys remember, but last time I talked about this river that kind of comes out of the valley and kind of cuts through the mountains back and heads towards Arklevy and Deep Lake. You guys are kind of going up this river through the valley. Every once in a while, you have to kind of ford across like a smaller little tributary, a little stream that feeds into this river. But after 4 days, because you guys were pretty tired, your going has been a little bit slower than it would have been. After 4 days, you come around a bend in the river and the trees kind of clear out, and you can see up ahead there is a collection of houses and kind of huts, long houses, that kind of thing, on both sides of this river. And you can see that across the river there is a Woodbridge. And Yasten kind of motions to the town, and he says, "Welcome to Woodbridge."
Well, I'll give them credit for ingenuity of the naming there.
Yeah, I think I understand their naming conventions.
Practical people.
The town's called Woodbridge. Their conventions, they're not super complicated, Pine.
Do we just come in with you, or do we need to wait outside to be presented, or how does this work?
I will speak for you. You can come with me. I'm sure the elders will wish to speak with you, though.
Okay.
All right. As you guys approach this collection of houses, you can see that there are people moving about. They're dressed in furs and warm clothes, thick boots. You can see that closer to the river, the grass kind of it disappears. It's all been trampled down into mud. You can see that they are like fishing in the river. They have a smithy where they're beating some iron or some copper or something. Some kind of metal work is happening here. You can see there are some fields that have since been harvested, and you can see that there's a couple of watchtowers spaced around this collection of houses. And in the center of town, you see two kind of unique things. You see a large grove of evergreen trees right in the center of this collection of houses. And then off to the west, you see from this distance, it looks like some kind of a large wooden statue. It's hard to make out any details unless somebody wants to try to make an investigation check at this distance as you're approaching.
Pine rolled a nat 20 for a 20.
Nice.
Joff got an 11.
Nari got a 15.
And Ebby got a natural 1.
As you guys are approaching, Matt, real quick, what are the deities for Menarest?
So they worship Cadriel, the deity of knowledge, and in all of their aspects. They worship Lord Mosha and Lady Artarian, who are gods, the Lord and Lady of Nature. And then they also worship the Lord and Lady of Justice, of Law.
So with your natural 20, even at this distance, Nari, you would know this with your 15 just because you've been through here before. But Pine, you can kind of see this statue, and you can just tell by the way that it is sitting on its throne. The throne looks like it's made up of like vines and natural kind of limbs. It looks like a statue of Lord Mosha sitting on a throne made of vegetation.
Okay.
And Nari, you would probably have known this anyway, having been through here before.
So Pine will actually, as we're writing up, Pine will look to Ebby and refer to him as
Mosha Zor. Look, they worship Lord Mosha here as well.
What? Wait, what was that? Ebby, with his natural 1 on investigation, was just listening and staring at Polkin as they were walking.
He complained so loudly.
They worship Lord Mosha here.
Oh,
That statue, that's Lord Mosha.
well, I suppose that makes sense, of course, right? With the mountains, although I would have thought that perhaps they might have worshipped something more so like related to the sky or the stars being this high up. But I suppose that makes sense. The earth is certainly strong in these parts. I can feel its vibrations.
And just with your with the time you've been spending with Yasten Tallhart, you know that he seems to really have an affinity for the woodlands, right? Like any chance he gets to kind of ride through the forest, he just seems to be more relaxed and more comfortable. The Tallharts are definitely more of a very connected to like the trees and the forests, almost in like an elvish type of a feel to them.
Nari will kind of ride up and kind of eavesdrop in and say, we Stormfists especially, we worship Lady Belra. She'll say that to Ebby in regards to his question. We definitely worship the gods that control the weather. That's kind of important to us up here.
That would make sense to me.
As you are looking at this statue, you see that it is probably, 20 feet tall, and it's sitting. So if Moshe was to stand up off of his throne, he would probably be 30 feet tall. This is a very large carved statue. As you approach the city of Woodbridge, you see kids kind of running around. You can tell that they're children because they have just like little nub of horn of antler, little rounded, almost like still covered in the velvet, little antlers popping out. Just as you watch these kids, they just seem very like active, very spry, just like running and jumping and playing and never sitting still, very just bundles of energy. The adults seem a little bit more reserved and more stoic almost. And you can see that like Yasten with he's a little bit more of the stoic kind of calm demeanor. You can see that seems to be a trend that runs through the adults in the Tallhart clan here in Woodbridge. As you approach, though, you can see people are looking your way, and you see some of the kids start to come closer to kind of see what's going on. You see other kids kind of run back and hide behind parents, or you see adults coming out of their homes with weapons in hand, not necessarily like aiming them at you, but you can see that they've got their bows ready, like maybe across their back. You can see people like leaning on spears, eyeing this group warily. And as you kind of come into this cluster of houses, Yasten kind of holds up his hand and he says something in Eustranian that Pine and Ebby don't understand, but Nari and Joff, you guys understand it perfectly well. And basically what he says is, "These are my guests, and they have safe passage through Tallhart land as long as I am with them." And you can see as he says that, people with their weapons, they kind of lose interest a little bit in what you guys are doing coming into town. He takes you to that grove that's in the center of town, and he says, "I must leave you for a short while. I must introduce you to the elders."
Thank you. We appreciate you taking us through the woods like that.
Yes. What should we absolutely not do while you're here?
He says, "Don't start a fight."
Okay. Do we have to stay here, or can we look around a little?
You can look around. That should be fine. Don't wander far. If the elders are willing to gather to speak with you, then it would be considered a great dishonor if you were late.
Okay.
Of course.
And then he heads off more. He actually goes into the grove of trees. As you guys are looking around, you see different houses. You can see there's like a blacksmith who's he was eyeing you guys at first, and then he's kind of lost interest. He's going back to working some kind of it looks like he's working on like arrowheads or something. Something very, very small. You can see that there are like not stables but pens where there's a couple of aelatons. You see some caribou that are being kept here as mounts and as kind of beasts of burden. But yeah, you see adults and kids kind of going around doing their normal lives. So what would you guys like to do?
Quick question for you, Paul.
Yes.
Is this an agrarian society? Do they have like fields and things of that nature?
Yeah, as you guys were approaching, you could see that there were some fields, and it looks like they've already been harvested. So they do have some farming, but a lot of their culture is just, not that they don't, like to farm, but a lot of their culture is just, hunting and kind of being off on your own, just kind of going out into nature, kind of a very secluded, I was going to say quiet lifestyle, but watching these kids run around and play, you can tell that it's not probably quiet when the kids are around. Does that make sense?
Probably why they like to go off and be secluded. It's because all the kids.
Maybe.
Tell me about it. No.
But it's almost like, as you're watching them, it's almost like something happens at puberty. All of a sudden their antlers start to get, and this is male and female, their antlers start to get more sharp and larger. Yeah, their antlers become more useful. Like you can see that they could actually like even fend off attackers with their antlers. Whereas the kids with their velvet little nubs are just kind of little balls of energy, just jumping around and playing. And it seems like they don't have a care in the world.
Got it. Well, I'd like to investigate the shrine a little bit, if possible.
Okay.
Pine will, while Ebby's doing that, Pine would like to go kind of see what the blacksmith had got going on.
Yeah, Nari will go with Pine and kind of, greet him and see if she can kind of use the fact that she's another member of the mountains to get some good answers from him.
And then Joff, what are you going to do?
Joff is going to stay where he's at. He's going to dismount from his beakaboo, just feed it, and he's going to sit down and start writing some thoughts.
Gotcha.
By the way, Joff, I meant to ask you,
Pine shouts over,
what did you name your beakaboo?
I named him Feathers. Feathers McGraw.
Feathers McGraw. When you say Feathers McGraw, your beakaboo says, "Bork, bork, bork." And Ebby, you instantly know, just because you can understand, Feathers McGraw is very embarrassed by that name. But you don't have to tell Joff that.
But more or less than embarrassed by the mustache.
Ebby hears it, and it's all like, the mighty Harpagos has been reduced to a pack animal. Lamentations and woe unto me.
Exactly, this regal creature.
I bet you're really fun to take to zoos, my dude.
All right. So, Ebby, we'll start with you. As you go over and you start to investigate, kind of look around this statue, you can see as you approach that there are like offerings laid around the base of this statue. Why don't you go ahead and make kind of either a perception or an investigation check? I'll even let you make a religion if you want to.
Okay. I would have loved to do either of those ones, except I already rolled an investigation and got a 5. So I'll stick with that.
Okay. As you're walking around, it looks like it's the craftsmanship of this statue looks really, really good. As far as the detail, as you get up closer, you can tell that there was a lot of work put into this. Even like the lines in like the robe and things. It's also carved with decorations like swirls and leaf patterns and things. It's just a very well done statue. And as your mind thinks back to, if you recall, way back in episode 3, when you guys were at the shrine of Mosha and there was that throne, it looks like that throne, this statue of Mosha would fit perfectly on that throne as well. Almost like it's the same size throne. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, so kind of same dimensions, which would indicate to me that maybe crafted by the same people or something of that nature.
Possibly.
Or maybe the statue gets up and wanders from shrine to shrine and sits around at different ones at different points in its life.
Exactly like that, and the statue looks exactly like the Abraham Lincoln Memorial. That's 100%. Get out of my head, dude.
The other thing too is like it's actually Lord Mosha. Just like getting up and walking to each place.
Okay, we have to stop talking. Paul is freaking out right now.
You guys, I'm scratching out notes left and right. No. Yeah, so that's what you kind of notice about the shrine and about this statue. Nari and Pine, you guys head over towards the blacksmith. The blacksmith looks older. In fact, he's got gray hair. His antlers are huge. You can tell that in his younger days, he must have been in a battle or something, because his left antlers actually are quite a bit smaller than the right side, almost like he got some of his antlers hacked off or something, and they didn't grow back the same size, if that makes sense. So he's a little bit kind of lopsided to the right, but he is pounding away on these little metal arrowheads. And as you approach, he says in Ustranian that only Nari can understand, he says, "Can I help you?"
Yes, me and my friend here are traveling up to visit my family up in the Stormfist Valley, and I was just wondering if you had heard anything about their whereabouts and about what's going on. It sounds like there might have been some trouble between y'all.
He sets his hammer down and he folds his arms, and again in Ustranian he says, "Oh, we know exactly where the Stormfists are."
Up in their summer home?
He kind of looks up at he looks kind of north and west towards the Stormfist part of the valley. And you can see in the very far distance, you can see kind of the mountains at the end of the valley. And he kind of looks off in that direction. He says, "Yes, they're up there."
Any idea what drove them up there?
He picks up his hammer and starts hammering again. He says, "Nope, and I don't care anymore."
Pine will say,
Habla Almerian.
He looks over at you and he goes, "Almerian? A little."
So I see you're making arrowheads. Do you do any other larger work? See,
and I'm going to pull out both of my swords that I have. I'm like, see, I'm a swordsman. I'm not in a threatening way, but just like with the blade down, holding them by,
almost handing the hilt to him kind of thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm a swordsman, and I'm looking for good quality.
He kind of eyes you, squints one eye. He turns to Nari and he says, "Is he asking if I can work on these weapons?"
Yeah.
He reaches out and grabs both your swords from you. and he starts looking at them. He starts kind of swinging them in the air a little bit to see.
I'm like, careful! That one will whip back at you if you're not careful.
He's kind of whipping that the sharp wit around real fast. And he spins your officer saber, and you can see get a little grin on his face, and he kind of starts nodding. And then he turns around and he hands them back to you. And then he turns to you, Nari, and he says, "Tell him that it would be an honor for me to work on such fine weapons."
I'll communicate that to Pine.
What would he have me do?
What can he do? I mean, the two completed swords. Could he combine the two?
He's holding the swords in his hand, and he's kind of like looking at you. He's trying to puzzle out what you're saying. And then he takes the two swords and he kind of puts them together in one hand.
I guessed it.
And he kind of he's shrugging. He's looking at you like, huh?
I'll translate that.
And I give him a big old thumbs up with a big smile.
Yeah, dude.
And then he turns to you, Nari, again, and he says, "I can work on these, but it will cost some money."
I would assume so.
Shoot, I'm broke.
So here's the deal. The work is going to cost money. The materials are not. So really all you're paying for is his work. So if you could pay him 50 gold pieces, we can figure something out.
We can do that for sure.
50, yeah, I have 50 gold pieces, and
I'll pull out the 50 gold pieces.
how long will this take? Because I mean, we're meeting with the elders, and I have no idea how long we can stay in town, and we're kind of moving on.
He's listening to you. He's kind of shaking his head, and then he just kind of puts his hand on the anvil, and he just kind of swats all the arrowheads off of his workstation, and he puts the two swords up there, and he's just like, and he turns to Nari and he says, "Tell him that I will start now, and I can be finished by morning."
It should be done by morning, is what he says.
Awesome. So, okay. Pine will kind of point to his officer saber and like kind of with his hands kind of demonstrate the shape of it and be like, basically trying to say, this is the shape that I like.
Right. You point to yours and you go, "This," and then you give a thumbs up. "Good. This, good." And then you point to the whippy one and you say, "This, not so good. Thumbs down," right?
Well, wavy hand. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Okay. Yeah, he kind of nods, and then he gives you a little like bow of his head. All right. Joff, you are staying back towards... Oh, and now we've disarmed your paladin. That's fantastic. Okay, let's see what trouble we can get into now.
I have a bunch of knives.
All right, Joff, as you are sitting there kind of waiting with Feathers McGraw, just kind of writing in your journal...
I'm just going to call him Feathers, by the way. But anyway.
Yasten comes up to you. He comes out of the woods, and he comes up to you and he says, "The elders would like to speak with you. They have some words of advice, and they have some questions."
Well, I'm assuming you mean the entirety of my group. Let me go and get them.
Yes, and please don't keep the elders waiting. And then he goes back into the grove of trees.
Okay. I'll run around and gather the party and bring them back to the grove. You must gather your party before venturing forth.
Yeah, exactly. At this point, Ebby is climbing Mosha's statue to get a better look at the face or something. I don't know.
Oh, man. I just had a flashback to when Nari specifically said to... Be respectful.
No.
and now Abby is sitting on Abraham Lincoln's lap.
You know, when you said Abraham Lincoln, my first thought was Pinky and the Brain, where Brain builds the hat for the Lincoln Memorial so that he can talk like he's Abraham Lincoln. Does anyone remember that?
No.
I do, but we're twins.
All right. You guys gather back up and you see this grove of trees, and there's nobody outside waiting or anything, but you did see Yasten kind of go in amongst the trees.
I'll kind of wait for Sabrina to take point and follow right behind her.
Yeah, I mean, I'm for sure going to follow.
As you guys wander through the trees, it's actually pretty thick, but you can, after a while of wandering through the trees, you can see that in the middle there is some kind of a clearing. Like 30 seconds of wandering through the trees, you come to this big open clearing, and in the center there is a large, like we're talking large, like a 15-foot long and 10-foot wide fire pit. And there is a large fire roaring, and sitting around the fire pit there are 5 intricately carved wooden chairs. And sitting in those chairs, you see these huddled figures. They are shriveled with age. They are bundled up under countless robes and furs, keeping warm, keeping comfortable. The antlers on their heads are huge. They seem to be almost weighted down by antlers, and they are so bundled up that you can't really tell features. You can't tell, male from female, or hair color or eye color, anything. But you see these 5 figures sitting around this fire, and behind them, back in the trees, you see Yasten, and he sees you guys approach, and he makes eye contact with you guys, and then he kind of nods, and he turns away. He turns around and walks away, and leaves you alone in this clearing with these 5 elderly Tallharts.
Nari will kind of walk up and center herself and give a little bow and say, "Thank you for having us in your space. We appreciate you sharing your fire."
You see one of them kind of nod at you, and then another one across the way says in a voice that it just sounds old. The voice just sounds old, ancient, and it says, "Tell us of the Stormfists. Why do they hide themselves away?" And this is in Almerian.
"I wish I knew. That's why I've come home. I haven't been home in a few years, and I heard stories that the Stormfists hold themselves away, and I wanted to come home and see what that was about."
Another one speaks up from across the fire and says to you, Nari, specifically, "Your mountain is unsettled. The Stormfists neglect their lands, and their lands reject them in turn."
I can feel that.
And then somebody else on the other side says, "We can all feel it under our feet."
Yes, I have no excuses, and I need to explore this further.
And then another one speaks up from at the far end, and he says, "With no Stormfists in the valley, we have new neighbors on our borders."
Who might that be?
They don't answer you. A different one says, "Tallhart lands are protected, Stormfist lands are not. Winterhome has new residents." And you would know Winterhome is the town of the Stormfists that's down by the lake, that is where the majority of the Stormfist clan would survive the winter. It's a little bit lower down the mountain and easier to survive the cold nights.
Well, it's a bit unsettling that you would so easily give away our home, but I appreciate you letting me know, and I can understand why you had to do that.
Another one speaks up and says, "It was not our home to protect." And then another one says, "You should speak with your people, your family, your parents."
I plan on doing that as soon as possible, to be honest.
And then another one, they keep bouncing. It's like almost like one will start a thought and then another one will finish it. Another one says, "We will escort you through our lands. We will see you to Stormfist land safely. But there our help ends." And as that one is talking, one of the other ones instantly says, "The wind, the leaves, the Green Lord speaks again." And all gets quiet. You can see the one that said that last line. He's the one that sits across the fire. He or she, you can't tell, sits across the fire. The other heads all turn towards that elder. And that elder slowly gets to his feet. And suddenly you can hear through the trees, the wind begins to pick up. It starts blowing in an easterly direction. So from the west side of the valley, through the forest, through this little grove of trees, off towards the east. And you can hear the rustle of leaves and the wind whipping through this grove. And then this elderly Tallhart who stood up says, The Lord of Wood speaks from afar of things to come, of things to end. And his unknowing avatar now comes with nature's end in hand. He comes with hope, and not alone, a fist of storm and shattered band, a royal line without a throne, a blade at waist and stick in hand. The ancient magic's buried deep within Pavantis' youngest child. The wounds, though closed, begin to weep, her very core, with love, defiled. The cure has worked until our day, now barriers begin to break. An angel trapped, his prison fades. Every time the ground does quake. What was to be may yet hold sway, if the angel has his say. And then the wind stops blowing, the leaves stop rustling, and the elder sits down, rests his head against his chest, and it's hard to tell, but you're pretty sure falls asleep. Slow, gentle rise of the chest and shoulders. The other elders look at him, and then they all turn their heads to look at you four.
Could you say that again? I wanted to write that down.
It sounds inevitable.
No response.
So Pine has been actually very observant watching this group of elders. I know they've been probably working together for a long time, finishing each other's sentences, but there's something mystical about this. So Pine would like to use his trained senses.
Okay.
The off chance that maybe one of them is a celestial fiend or undead, or if there's a hallow spell in effect here.
Celestial fiend or undead.
Correct. My other guess is Fae, but I don't have that ability.
You kind of open your senses. You start to peer. You start to rack your brain with all that training that you got in the Menorese military. For some reason, learn how to tell if you're a devil or an angel or whatever.
Yeah.
You don't detect celestial fiend or undead.
Okay.
Did you all get that? Did you hear? I think that was very pointed toward us.
Yes, I would say so.
As they're all like staring right at us.
They are very much just staring right at you.
If what they said, if I'm understanding it correctly, it sounds as though the angel perhaps had been imprisoned for a time, but with each of these tremors that we felt, the prison grows less strong.
That means the prison is probably in these mountains.
Pine will kind of look toward the elders, and he'll say, "I'll do the Menorese salute," which is 3 taps on the breastplate and then 3 fingers kissed into the sky, and he'll say,
I believe I am the sword that's wasted with a stick in hand.
and I'll kind of motion with my cane.
They look at you.
Correct me if I'm wrong, everyone. A thought has occurred to me. When we were at the library of Lord Cadriel, and we saw that, do you remember that globe, the depiction of Pavantis?
Was there a youngest child?
The Glass Mountains weren't there. The Glass Mountains could be the youngest child.
They could be.
Geology's so cool.
Look at that strata.
It's amazing. It's beautiful. But what if the Glass Mountains are either the youngest child or didn't they say something about something was weeping, like a wound on Pavantis was weeping?
Yes.
What if the Glass Mountains were created almost as a prison for the Angel of Unity?
I mean, I think we would have noticed if there was just an angel hanging out.
Perhaps deep inside, though.
Are we saying also that the Angel of Unity is the same thing as the Angel of Inevitability? I mean, it's never been explicitly said, but I've been kind of operating under that assumption.
That's what I've been assuming as well.
Agreed.
All I know is we got to get up there in those mountains.
Question for Jordan. Would you have shared your most recent vision conversation with Niam, or is that something you're keeping close to the chest?
I probably had initially kept that one close to the chest.
Okay, all right.
Well, maybe we need to have more conversations away from prying eyes.
And he'll kind of look back over at these old people just staring us down.
Yeah, the only motion is their breathing, and 4 of them are basically okay. Make a quick perception check. Anybody who wants to.
Oh, we're all going to do it.
Nobody's ever said, "Nah, I don't want to do one."
19.
Okay, sorry, Nari, you got 19. Awesome.
Joff got a 25.
Oh my god.
Ebby got a 14.
Pine got a 20.
Oh my goodness. Joff, you and Nari and Pine, you all notice right away that one of them is asleep. The other 4 are all breathing in unison.
Nari will kind of step up, do like a little half bow, and then just kind of start to slowly walk away.
Again, if we could get that in writing, we'd love it before we leave town.
I think they've got a hive mind thing going.
Would you like me to read it again for the podcast listeners?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll read it without the old man quiver. Okay. The Lord of Wood speaks from afar, of things to come, of things to end, and his unknowing avatar now comes with nature's end in hand. He comes with hope and not alone, a fist of storm and shattered band, a royal line without a throne, a blade at waist and stick in hand. The ancient magics buried deep within Pavantis' youngest child, the wounds, though closed, begin to weep. Her very core, with love, defiled. The cure has worked until our day, now barriers begin to break. An angel trapped, his prison fades, every time the ground does quake. What was to be may yet hold sway, if the angel has his say.
Yeah, I don't know, guys. I'm feeling pretty good about my thoughts there.
I agree.
So Nari is leaving the clearing, right?
Oh, yeah. Hell yeah. I'm backing away. I'm kind of gesturing for y'all, but you can do whatever you want.
Pine wants to get out of this creepy place.
A quick question for everyone. Before I leave this clearing here, when do we want to head out and start heading towards the Stormfists? Do you think we have a day or so? I guess, question for Paul, what time of day is it that we are currently at?
It's probably around noon, and you guys are going to have a day anyway because Pine doesn't have any weapons.
Right.
Oh, I can make do. Don't wait on my account.
Got it. Well, Ebby's going to turn to the guys and say, I feel compelled to do something for these people and in honor of these disciples of Lord Mosha. If you'll permit me the rest of the day, I may stay here in this grove for a time. And basically what Ebby wants to do is he wants to do, so the spell plant growth, the 3rd level spell plant growth.
Yeah.
There's 2 options. One is to cast it using 1 action and then causing a bunch of the plants to overgrow in then like a certain radius. The other is if you cast it over an 8-hour period, you enrich the land, and all plants in a half-mile radius centered on that point within range become enriched for 1 year, and the plants yield twice the normal amount of food when harvested.
Wow.
And so I kind of want to do this almost as an offering and a thank you to the wisdom that they've given us.
Awesome. Very cool. So everybody else is going to leave Ebby there?
Pine will say to Ebby,
Growing up, I was also I learned of the Lord and Lady of Nature. If you have something to do here, that's great. I think I'm going to go to the shrine and maybe try to reconnect as well. It seems maybe I need to go back to my Bible camp days as a youth.
No, please don't.
It seems I should maybe reacquaint myself with the worship of Lord Mosha. His name continues to pop up.
All of a sudden, Pine's wearing a DC Talk t-shirt.
no.
I think I should just reacquaint myself with the worship of Lord Mosha.
So Pine's going to go spend some time at the shrine itself.
Cool.
If what that man said was true, Ebby, you might be an avatar for Lord Mosha.
I think that you might be correct. It was eerie and uncanny, the knowledge that they seemed to have.
The other thing that's a little off-putting to me is he said that you bring nature's end in your hand, and the only thing I can think of is that crystalline disc, and I don't know what that means.
Neither do I.
Well, they said it was a failsafe, right?
I believe so, yeah.
So if the plan was to imprison here in the Glass Mountains, then this key would unlock it. This failsafe. If their plan had failed, if their plan was not working as it should, then it was our only hope. So maybe it can be used to secure the lock. Or maybe our path lies in unlocking it altogether.
All things I think that we need to ponder on.
And I think I shall do that on the lap of Abraham Lincoln.
Awesome. Okay, so we know where Pine's going to go. We know where Ebby's going to be. What's Nari and Joff going to be up to?
Honestly, at this point, Nari would probably just go back to wherever they're kind of staying and just sort of wait it out.
Yeah. Okay. As you exit the grove, you were kind of the first one to kind of turn around and start walking out. You see that Yasten is there waiting for you. As you come out, he says to you, Nari, he says, "You don't need to tell me what they said, but I think it's good that they met with you. Come, let me take you to my home. You're my guests."
I appreciate it. Thank you, Yasten.
And he takes you to a small, like 2-room kind of hut. It's got a little a little table and a cooking area on one side. Then there's a wall with doesn't even have a door. It has like a curtain hung. Kind of like, if you're thinking like Witcher 3, sometimes those small little huts out in the woods and stuff, basically like that. And so there's a sleeping area as well. And he takes you there and he kind of shows you around a little bit. And then Joff, what are you going to be doing?
I'll follow with Nari and go to the house as well.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, same deal. You can kind of see around his house. He doesn't have a lot of like worldly goods. You see a lot of like animal pelts. You see like he's got a bed and it's covered with like furs and things like that. It looks like it's all stuff that maybe he hunted himself and has treated into blankets and covers for himself. But yeah, it seems to be a relatively simple life, and it does look like he lives here alone. He is probably a bachelor. And then Pine, you are heading over to the statue of Lord Mosha. I just want you to make either an investigation or a religion check.
Okay. So Pine just rolled a 10 with no pluses to it.
As you are sitting there, you also are just kind of looking at this statue of Lord Mosha, and you can't help but think of the intricate designs and just the work that went into this statue. It does look very, very well crafted. Somebody or a group of people put a lot of love and effort into this statue. And as you're looking at it, you can't help but think back to your time in Menarest, where you would see other depictions of Lord Mosha, and this is probably the most beautiful one you've ever seen.
Does it match the throne that he's sitting on? Like, does it the same amount of detail?
Yeah, seems to be.
Okay. Well, thinking back to as well the Shrine of Mosha that we ran into up on the way up to Mount Tabor, Pine will look around to kind of see maybe where the statue is looking.
Okay.
And like kind of trace its eye line and like look to see if it's looking anywhere in particular.
It is looking directly at the grove of trees where you just were.
Okay.
As you inspect its face, you see also that it appears that its mouth is open, like it's speaking.
Oh.
I'll have to ask Ebby if he noticed if the mouth was open earlier.
With Ebby's bad investigation, he probably wouldn't have noticed.
So with that, I think that Pine will just kind of like, he's not going to kneel. He'll just kind of like sit cross-legged on the ground, looking up at the statue, and he'll kind of he'll say out loud in Menorese, he'll say,
Lord Mosha, you are one of the deities of my youth. I haven't thought much on religion, on the gifts and bounties that you and the other lords and ladies of balance have provided me throughout my life. But it would seem that now my fate is completely entwined with your will. I ask you to guide me, to guide Abby. I mean, Abby knows you better than I. Guide him. Help him to lead us, to understand what it is that we can do to save your creations, to help heal this world.
and Pine will end that prayer and kind of sit there in meditation.
Yeah, what's your perception? What's your passive perception?
Passive perception is 13.
You feel a slight stirring against your kind of the hair on your neck, like a little breeze blows past your neck, and that's all.
Okay.
Ebby, you are in this grove. You are doing this 8-hour kind of commune with nature, right? As you are doing so, the elders sit in their thrones and watch you and do not move. And the one who is sleeping remains asleep the entire time. What do you envision with this spell? Like what do you imagine happens here to this town of Woodbridge?
Yeah, so the way I picture this kind of going down, I picture Ebby kind of getting down on his knees and then kind of shoving his hands into the earth next to him. And then I imagine kind of this green magical aura starts to kind of emanate, kind of starting with along the cracks of kind of his metallic chest piece and cuirass, however you want to say it.
You'd ask what?
Ooh, heyo.
I believe it's cuirass.
Yeah, something like that. Nailed it. Anyway, and then I picture his eyes just kind of like erupting in this very bright green kind of glow. And even though it's late in the year and things are kind of starting to go dormant for winter, I imagine a bunch of plants growing up right along where his arms are kind of thrust into the ground. They start to kind of grow up, and these plants start kind of wrapping themselves around his forearms and up on his upper arms as well. And while the plants aren't going to, break from the reality that is, the season that they're in, there is a vitality that seems to kind of, vibrate through, emanating from Ebby out in all directions. Limbs that were weak or maybe seemed broken start to kind of thicken and are healed, even though the leaves are still changing colors. And even though, autumn is rapidly waning, the plants are just being fortified significantly. Perhaps some of the lichen starts to take on a fresh hue of like green, or some of the moss looks to be more vibrant than it was previously. But the hope is that as spring rolls around, this area will be incredibly verdant and full of life, and will have kind of that blessing of nature on it.
That's awesome. That's cool. That's a great use of that spell. Yeah. So you stay there. So it's like, I think I said a little bit like noon, maybe a little bit after afternoon. You stay there till well past dark. And the whole time, these elders are watching you. The one never waking, the 4 never moving, the fire never getting smaller or bigger. And after 8 hours, you're done. At this point, I imagine Joff and Nari and Pine have all kind of settled in at Yasten's house for a meal and to kind of, get some good rest.
We're playing categories.
Ooh, yeah.
And you guys also have books to read.
But categories.
Quick, a boy's name that starts with R.
Ryan Reynolds.
There you go. 2 points. All right. Ebby, you finish this. As you kind of pull yourself free of these plants that have grown up around you, and you collect yourself, I imagine you're kind of looking down at the ground for a second. You feel a hand on your shoulder.
Yeah, I mean, I'll turn around and see who's touching me.
You see the 4 elders that were watching you are still sitting there watching you. The one that was asleep is now standing next to you with his hand on your shoulder. His other hand, you can see it's wrapped up in gloves, but you can see a slight tremor in the fingers of age. Reaches up and kind of gently touches your sleeve and pulls it back to see the metal beneath, and then touches that metal. Give me 1 second. Sorry. I'm looking up a spell.
Here we go. Blight. No.
With that touch, you can feel the shakiness. You can feel the kind of the leathery old skin of the fingers, but you also feel this warmth come out of the fingers into your metal body. One thing you did notice when he touches you or she touches you, you can't tell. When they touch you, you can feel warmth coming into your body. And what this means is because of what you've done, basically you have a D8 of inspiration that you can hang on to until you need it.
Woohoo! Awesome.
So it's a bard.
Yeah.
Well, bardic inspiration fades. This does not fade. This is a D8 that you can use at any time, one time.
Very cool. Ebby is going to kind of bow his head deeply, and in Allele, he will say, "Thank you, and Lord Mosha's blessing be upon you."
In Allele, he responds back, "And his blessing upon you, Avatar." And then he turns back around, goes back to his seat, and sits down. And now there are 5 heads watching you.
All right. I will leave the grove and see if I can join up with the rest of them.
Yeah, perfect. Awesome. All right, you guys all go back to Yasten's house. You, I guess, kind of relax. You guys have a nice meal. There's a lot of like root vegetables and things that he has prepared. There's even some fresh game that he has brought down, some kind of fowl, some kind of birds that he's cooked up that taste really, really good. One of them is really big, and he keeps calling it Tuxie for some reason.
Oh, you jerk.
I'm just kidding.
I'm so upset. Don't even.
So yeah, but it's a very nice meal, and it's very good. And as he puts the food in front of you, he looks you all in the eyes and he says, "Bone apple tit." That's the traditional like mountain clan.
God, get out of here.
You said that in one of the earlier episodes.
Nari, you made it canon. So he says bone apple tit and he gives you this food.
Well, I mean, honestly, you think about it. The bone carries the meat, the apple is of the earth, and then the tit gives you the milk.
Exactly.
Very beautifully put. Wow.
All right. So the night goes on. You guys can have conversations if you want to. You guys can do some studying in your books if you want to. And other than that, or you guys can just get some sleep.
I'm trying to remember, did I finish reading my book?
No, you did not.
Okay, so I have one more chapter. I would like to spend the evening, between contemplation on the prophecy that we were just present for, and then reading the book on the cult of inevitability.
Perfect. Everybody else?
Jeff has a notepad out or, some papers out, and he's kind of writing his thoughts. He's trying to unpack some of the emotions that he has after the events in Arkelvy.
Okay.
Nari would also be kind of like flipping through her book, but she's more stressed out and just like having anxiety over what's going on with her family. So she's not really getting much done, I don't think.
Well, you can still make your intelligence check to see how much more allele you learn if you want to.
And Ebby will read some Crystal Codex too.
Gotcha. Okay. All right.
16.
You're not sure if it's just that you've been spending so much time with Ebby, but for some reason it seems like you're picking up more. You've thumbed through it a couple times on this trip. This is the first time you've actually kind of really just looked at it since leaving Arkelvy. You feel like you're getting a good grasp of Allele. Maybe not speaking it, but you could probably read fairly well at this point. So at this point, basically with a difficulty of 15, if you can do, we'll say 2 more successes of an intelligence check, difficulty 15, we'll say that you can become fluent in reading Allele. Does that sound good?
Sick.
Cool. All right. So who wants to read their book first?
Pine will go first if nobody else wants to go first.
All right. Pine, you pull out this book. Let's see. What was it called again? The Cult of Inevitability by Sister Librarian Gem Ordo Verum. Okay. This is the third part, the third and final part. It's the shortest and is admittedly the mostly conjecture. Librarian Gem makes some leaps of logic, but readily admits their shortcomings. For example, she hypothesizes that perhaps the Angel of Inevitability may in fact not be a real being at all. Her thought on this topic is based solely on the Angel's apparent inability to stop the free will believers. If you guys recall, the followers of the Angel of Inevitability were trying to make the inevitable happen, and this Angel of Inevitability was powerless to stop whatever plan was put forth. If what will be, then what happened is what was supposed to happen, right? Philosophically, this is a paradox. So as such, the belief in inevitability had to change as time went on. The second theory is that there is an angel of this idea of inevitability, but perhaps they have been diminished somehow, slain or wounded, or maybe held prisoner. That may explain why the angel appears to have no real power to give to its acolytes, although admittedly little is known of the current disposition of members of the cult. And the third and final possibility produced by Gem involves the idea that the Angel of Unity and the Angel of Inevitability are one and the same, and that the Almerian Empire's push to conquer and elevate Iramil above the Lords and Ladies is a plot to diminish the other deities' power. This would allow Iramil to finally bring about the inevitable due to little pushback from the Lords and Ladies. According to this theory, only a select few in the Almerian imperial hierarchy would be aware of the ulterior motives of Iramil, perhaps only the Emperor or Empress and a select few advisors. Alternatively, the Emperor may himself be unaware. Perhaps there is some unseen power directing the Empire from the shadows. This last conclusion has the least evidence, but in Gem's words, is the most fun to think about. So there you go. You have now finished the book.
Yeah, I think we've drawn some of the same conclusions, and I'll share that with everybody as I close the book. I'll kind of summarize kind of what I read to everybody.
Nari's kind of snoozing, but
She's like, what? Inevitability? Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
Yeah, I know that word. It's hard to say.
It's hard to say when you say Almerian, ulterior, inevitability, all in the same sentence. All right. What I need from Ebby is I need you to roll a d4 twice.
Okie dokie. I got a 3 and a 3.
So roll one of those 3s again.
A 3 and a 4.
3 and a 4. All right. This is interesting. As you're reading through, you're flipping through the book. This Arnium Celadar, who you know as Neum, he speaks of a shrine to Lord Mosha on the plains of Hosen, where he planted a tree and built a laboratory to continue his research, melding arcana and nature. And as you're reading that sentence, you hear Neum's voice. And what you hear is, there, you see? It worked. She's in there, and there she will stay. Then he pauses as if listening for a response. Of course she will. She's probably more committed to this than you and me put together. She'll keep it safe, trust me, and trust her. Again, waiting for the unheard side of the conversation. Then, well, you know better than I do, but we can both agree that as of today, the die has been cast. We cannot turn back now. For better or for worse, this is it. A firmness enters his voice. This will work. Today, we have saved Pavantis. Which, Ebby, you've heard that exact same conversation before. In fact, the first time that you heard Neum talking to you after meeting the fallen heaven, this very same experience came to your mind. And then with your roll of a 4, you're reading along, and he occasionally will kind of deride inevitability, calling it a ridiculously simple way of viewing the world, but potentially dangerous. And then you can hear Niam's voice in your brain again. And again, it's not talking to you. It's some kind of a memory. And you hear it, sabotage? How? 2 months worth of work gone. Then there's a pause and he comes back calmer. They are like children messing with things they cannot understand. We can make it, but only just. Double security. No one gets anywhere close without the proper protocols. One more mishap like this and we'll be too late. And you are almost done reading the Crystal Codex.
Interesting. Okay. I also will kind of relay both what I've read and then the kind of visions or thoughts that have come into my head.
So he called it the plains where the laboratory was, but we know it as the mountains now. That also lends credence to the idea that those mountains were created, maybe as part of this imprisoning the angel of inevitability.
I think so. I think that these are starting to kind of all point in that same direction.
As this night kind of comes to a close, you guys close up your books. You decide to get some good rest because you have some travel to do tomorrow. As you head out towards the Stormfist lands. Morning comes. Sun shines in. Yasten is up and getting dressed, and he informs you that he will be taking you the rest of the way through Tallhart land to make sure you're not accosted by any other Tallharts, and take you to the edge of the Stormfist land. So when you're ready, he's ready to take you.
Well, I don't have anything waiting, so I think I'm ready to go right now.
As soon as Pine is up, he's going to wash up and then head over to the blacksmith to see how things are going.
Okay. You going by yourself?
Anybody who wants to come see a blacksmith.
Or anybody who wants to speak Ustranian.
Oh, that's right.
Nari will also go with you.
All right. So you walk on over. And the blacksmith is up, and you can see that he's got his anvil out and he's working on arrowheads again.
Give up, huh?
He kind of gets startled by you, and he looks over at you and he gets a big grin on his face, and then he turns around and he kind of reaches into into his house, into his shop, and he comes back out with a sword in a scabbard, and it looks like your officer's saber, and he hands it to you.
I bow as I graciously accept it. I will step back and I will draw it from its scabbard and take a look.
As you pull this sword out, you can see that it is indeed your officer's saber. It has definitely been cleaned up. Some of the nicks and the chips and things have been smoothed out. The blade is a mirror finish, and interestingly enough, starting all the way down at the handle, at the cup guard, in the blade, there is a thin band of metal of a slightly different color that goes all the way the length of the blade, almost like the epee blade is now literally inside of the saber's blade. As you pull it down or pull it out, I don't know how you would just know this. You just get the feeling that this weapon is now better than your weapon was before, and you're going to need some time with it in order to really get used to it. If that makes any sense, what I'm saying.
I need to attune to it.
Yep.
Great. I don't have any attunement slots.
That's the problem with getting cool stuff, is that you got to attune to a lot of it.
Okay. So again, I look at him and I say,
Thank you very much. It is beautiful.
and I'll sheath it and I'll put it back on my belt.
He bows to you as you leave.
So, Nari, thanks for accompanying me. Thanks for translating and everything. Would you be at all interested? I mean, I know that your old axe has a lot of sentimental value, and you have this new one. Is that something you'd be interested in doing? Combining the two, maybe?
That's a good idea. I did, she'll kind of pull out her axe, and I did kind of change over the handle, but it doesn't quite feel the same. that might be quite nice. Yeah.
I think, well, I don't know if we wanted to spend another day. I think everybody would understand. It depends on really you and how eager you are to get home. Or maybe when we're coming back through, we can stop by.
Yeah, maybe when we're coming back through. I think now is not the time, but that might be nice. I will definitely hold on to my original axe.
That is a smith of great skill.
I'm going to head back over to the smith.
You are an amazing smith. What is your name? And I'll repeat the word name again. Name. You. Name.
Got a name. I've got totally got a name.
Everybody has a name.
Let's go. Let's see what the name was. I have it written down. Darden.
Darden, I will remember you. I will tell tales of your skill.
And I'll bow again.
And he bows back, and he's got a big smile on his face. You can tell that he has definitely very much appreciated working on such fine weapons. Yes, that now you have to attune to.
I'll take off my. What do I want to take off?
You can leave your hat on.
Yeah, I'll take the ring of evasion off, and I'll go give it back to Ebb. He's like,
Well, I don't need this anymore. But maybe somebody else in the party does. It's yours, so you can divvy it out how you will.
Oh, well, that's fine. Anybody wants a cool ring? Huh? Joff?
Yeah, I'll take a look at it unless Nari wants it.
Go for it.
it basically makes you immune to fireballs.
It does. I mean, wait. Oh, good. Wait. You're a rogue. Don't you have something where eventually, even if you fail, you still take half damage?
Yeah, I would have gotten that this level up, but I took a level of cleric.
Oh, gosh. Interesting. Yes, that ring would make you totally immune to fireballs. You have your new sword, Pine. You have to figure out what it actually does. But you guys pack up. Yasten is waiting for you on his Aileton. You get your beakaboos all packed up, your caribou. You hear lots of bork, bork, bork. Crumbles is ready to go. And you leave this town of Woodbridge and head north and west towards the Stormfist lands, accompanied by Yasten, who promises he will get you there safely. But that'll have to wait till next time, because we're going to stop for tonight. Anyway, hope you guys all enjoyed this session tonight. There was there was a lot more little secrets revealed than I kind of expected. So that was kind of fun. It's always fun to get like a revelation or a prophecy or some kind of a cool little mystery to help you guys to try to figure out. Anyway, if you like what we're doing, tell a friend. It's fun to have somebody to talk to.
It is fun to have somebody to talk to.
I agree.
I like friends, yeah.
If you have a friend, tell them.
For all of you who are listening to us, if you have a friend, tell a friend. If you don't have a friend, get a friend.
We'll be your friend. Join our Patreon.
You can pay us to be your friend.
Oh, and just a quick reminder, we are going to be doing another Q&A here very, very soon. So send us your questions. If you're a patron, send it through Patreon. If you're not, you can email it to us. And if you want to hear the answers to those questions, then join the Patreon. Anyway, hope you guys all have a great time.